Okay, yesterday we learned about slope-intercept form. Today we're going to be learning about point-slope form. This is a different format of an equation. We can use this form when lines are written in this form to graph pretty easily. Okay, here's what the form looks like. Alright, in this format, all of these highlighted parts are typically filled in with a number. So the numbers that get filled in end up being our slope, m, and then a point that's somewhere on the line. So that's why this is called point-slope form, because we know that in any point there's an x and a y, right? So if we know a point, and then we can also find the slope, remember the slope is the letter m, then I can graph my line. So our first example, we're going to graph each line given the line in point-slope form. So here's your first example, and today, I'm sorry I didn't have time to print any graphs for you, but you're going to need to draw a couple graphs, okay? Alright, so here's your first one. Hold on, I just typoed that. Alright, so here's your first line that we're going to graph. Y minus 5 equals negative 1/2 times x minus 2. So in this format, what we're trying to do first is we're trying to identify what is our point and what is our slope. So the point comes from what number is being subtracted with the y and what number is being subtracted with the x. These two numbers are going to tell us our point that's on our line. So our point here is going to be our value that's subtracting with x. That number is 2. And then our value that's subtracting with y. That number is 5. So our point is going to be 2, 5. Now, what's our slope? Well, our slope is this number here that's multiplying by this set of parentheses. So our slope is negative 1/2. Now, given that information, I can then go ahead and I can make a graph. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to draw a graph right now. Try to do a good job when you draw this. Try to make your spacing as even as you can. If you don't make the spaces the same size, it'll turn out looking all crazy. Alright, so here's my graph. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to graph our point. So where is our point located at? 2, 5. So let's go over 2, up 5. Did everyone get their point right there? Alright, from this point, I'm going to use this slope to find some more points on my line. So what is this slope telling me to do? What is the rise? -1. What's the run? 2. So from this point, put your pencil on that point that you just drew. Go down 1 to the right 2 spaces. Put a new point there. Now do that again. Go down 1 to the right 2 spaces. Put a point there again. Now we could continue doing that in that fashion if I had more room. Okay, but I don't have a lot of room here, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to connect my dots. So this is slightly different than slope-intercept form because you're not starting at the y-intercept, you're starting at a random point on the graph. It's similar to slope-intercept form in that after you put that initial point, you're then just going in the direction of the slope to get more points on your line. Does that make sense what we did there? Yeah? Okay. We're going to do another example. Okay, here's your next example. Okay, write this down, please. Okay, so in this one you have y plus 2 equals 3 times x plus 1. Now, in our original formula we wrote down, if you look back up here at the top, it's showing that these are supposed to be minuses right here, right? And that this number that I put in for my point is the number that's subtracting with y and the number here that's subtracting with x. But in this equation that I just wrote down, is anything subtracting here? This is plus, it's adding, and this is also plus, right? So, in order to help you guys see what the actual number is for our values for x1 and y1 so we can determine our value of our point, I'm going to rewrite this for you guys. Do you guys agree that this is the same thing as this? Doesn't this y minus -2 make y plus 2? Doesn't that mean the same thing? Okay. Now, on the other one, doesn't this x minus -1, doesn't this really make x plus 1? Okay. So I've basically rewritten this, so now I have a minus in my formula, right? Or in my equation. So it's closer to matching what the original one was that you guys wrote down at the top of the paper, right? Okay, now that I have that, let's look at what number is in that spot, that y1 spot, and that x1 spot. So what number is there now? -2 and -1. So when we write down our point, we're going to write down that x1 is -1 and y1 is -2. Does that make sense how we got that? Okay. When I look at the original, remember, the original was y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. This is the original, right? The numbers that I'm using for my point are these numbers. But I'm not using that negative sign there, right? It's just the number that's here. Okay? So if I have a plus here, I can't have a plus here and then say the number is positive 2, I have to change that plus to a minus so it fits this format. Right now, this equation is almost fitting this format, but not quite, right? So in order to get this plus to be a minus, what makes a positive? A negative negative sometimes makes a positive, right? When I have a positive, I can replace it with a negative negative. Now, once I replace it with a negative negative, what part is actually in this spot? Well, what part here is in that spot? Negative 2. That's why that's the y value for my point. What part is in this spot, in the x1 spot? Negative 1. That's why negative 1 is my point there. Does that make more sense now? Why? Yeah? Okay. So now that I've got my point, let's look at what is my slope. Okay, so our slope here is the number multiplying by this set of parentheses. So what's the slope? 3. Now, when you're thinking about a rise and a run, 3 is representing what? The rise or the run? The rise, okay. And so what's the run then? 1, because remember, when there's nothing in the denominator, it's not really that there's nothing. There's a 1 in the denominator, okay. So now let's go ahead and let's draw our graph and graph this equation. Okay, so everyone go ahead, draw your graph. Try to make your spacing as even as possible. Okay, so we're going to start out by putting our point onto the graph. So our point is negative 1, negative 2. So everyone put your point right there. Okay, now from that point, what's my slope I'm using? 3 over 1. So from here, I'm going up 3 over 1. It's a positive slope, so it should end up looking like it's going uphill. So up 3, 1, 2, 3 over 1. And maybe I can do that one more time. I get something like this. Okay. Now that you've got that, you can go ahead and start to connect. Okay. Are there questions on how we did that? Okay. Are you guys good there? Okay. Are we ready to turn the page? Yeah or no? Yeah? Okay. All right. Okay. Next. Okay, can you guys see or no? Hold on. All right, there you go. Okay, next we're going to write an equation for each line. All right, so here's your example. The slope is 3. And negative 3 comma 2 is on the line. All right, so this is the information that we're given about our line. We're given the slope. They also told you a point that's on the line, right? So this slope, this is going to go in the spot for m. This point, which one of these values is an x value? The first one or the second one? The first one. So the first one is your x1, and the second one is your y1. So this is your point that we're going to plug into our generic form of the equation. Now, what was the generic form of the equation that we wrote down on the other side of our notes? Wasn't it this? This is what we wrote down. So I'm going to plug these things into this equation. So when I do that, here's what I get. I get y minus 2 equals m, what's m? 3 times x minus negative 3. Okay, now, if I have a double negative, I'm going to simplify that. So this right here, what can that simplify to? Positive. So y minus 2 equals 3 times x plus 3. Okay? This is my equation written in point-slope form. So you're going to have some problems on your homework tonight where it asks you to do this. So you need to be able to identify the slope, the x1, the y1, and then plug them in and simplify if necessary. Okay, we're going to do another example like this. So write this one down. All right, so your slope is 1/3, and 2, -5 is on the line. All right, so what's your value of m that you have here? 1/3. Okay, which one's your x1? 2. Which one's your y1? -5. All right, so now let's plug these things into all that stuff, right? Okay, so we're going to get y minus, what was y1? Y1 is -5 equals m, what was m? 1/3 times x minus what? 2. Okay, now, can you simplify that? Yes. So, we're going to get then y plus 5 equals what? 1/3 times x minus 2. Okay? So, that's not too bad, right? How is that? Hard or easy? How does it feel? Easy? Is that okay? All right. Okay. I'm going to make this example a little bit harder for you guys. Okay? All right. Okay, the line passes through 2, 2, and 6, -4. All right, why is this one harder? Did it tell you a slope? No. Could I use either one of these points as my x1, y1? Yeah, because the line goes through both of them, so it doesn't matter which one I were to use. Now, how am I going to find the slope, though? Okay, Nena, say that out loud, louder.
y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1.
Okay, good. Nena said, let's use the slope formula, which she remembered was y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. Okay, so let's label these ones. Let's call this one x1, y1. Let's just call this the first ordered pair. And let's call this one over here x2, y2. And let's find our slope, okay? So for our slope is going to equal y2, what's y2? Negative 4 minus y1, what's y1? 2, divided by x2, what's x2? 6 minus x1. What was x1? 2. Okay, so now we need to figure out the slope. So on the top, this gives me negative 6 over on the bottom, what does that give me? 4. Okay, now can we reduce this? Yeah, what is it going to reduce to? Negative 3 over 2. Okay, so now we've found our slope. Now, are we done with the problem? Is that the answer? No, the problem still wants us to write the equation of the line. So now that I have my slope and now that I have a point, can I now write the equation of the line? Okay, so let's write the equation of the line. Y minus, what was y1? 2 equals m, what was m? Negative 3 over 2, right? I just found what m was. Times x minus, what was x1? 2. Okay, and so there's the answer there. So if they only give you 2 points, you have to do one extra step, which is finding the slope first. Okay? But that's a step you guys already have learned how to do last module we learned about, right? So this is something that's kind of a review, finding the slope using the formula. All right? Are there any questions on what you guys are doing today? Anything at all you guys want to ask about? Okay.